What's good, y'all? It's your boy Light, and your boy's back at the Pavner Banger today. So your boy's the screen is back with another one. Welcome back to one on this book is Skater Friday. Now, go ahead, get your snack, get your drinks, or let's get straight into it. Today we're gonna react to 3 true horror stories animated. Let's get into it, y'all.
When I was 13, my life was shattered. My dad died in a car accident, and just months later, my mom lost her long battle with cancer. In the blink of an eye, I was alone. The state decided I was too young to take care of myself, so they sent me to a foster home, an old mansion tucked away in a hilly forest. It was a place where I thought I could maybe find some peace, but instead, I saw something much darker. The mansion looked like something out of an old movie, tall with creaky floors and surrounded by thick, dark trees. Mrs. Damsel, who ran the place, was the foster mother and teacher for all kids. 10 other kids were living there, but they were off. They barely
Damn.
talked, moved around like robots, and ate candy like it was the only food they'd ever known. Not just the occasional piece. I'm talking bowls and bowls of the stuff for every snack. Mrs. Damsel had a few servants who helped her keep the place running, but one of them, Carl, stood out like a sore thumb. He was this
Oh, that's creepy
50-year-old
shit,
guy
boy.
who had no business being around kids.
Damn.
He never knocked before entering our rooms, and he had this unsettling habit of watching us during meals.
Okay,
his
that's
eyes lingering a little too long. I couldn't put my finger on
mud. Like, y'all already know what that is. You know what I'm saying?
it, but something wasn't right about the way Carl interacted with us. He'd pop up.
Carl like kids. Yeah. Yeah, Carl like kids. This man right here, he like kids. Yeah. Then, you know what I'm
Out
saying?
of nowhere, scaring us in the halls, and he always seemed to know what we were doing, even when we were supposed to be alone. The other
Damn.
kids didn't seem to notice, or if they did, they didn't care.
Oh, you will notice, bro. If somebody look at me really long time, I know they're looking at me, bro. Like, okay, bro, I let that shit slide. But you keep looking at me, I see you, like, if I'm saying, I feel the energy. I see you looking at me, if I'm saying. So there's no way Carl there's there 24/7 when you sleep, when you wash teeth, or when you taking a doo-doo. My boy is there. You're gonna feel his energy, bro. You're gonna see, okay, Carl, what's good, bro? Do you wanna join in, if I'm saying? I'm almost done. Can you close the door really quick? If I'm saying? You see me. That's crazy.
They were too wrapped up in those damn candies. One night, I woke up to the sound of muffled crying. I crept out of bed and followed the noises to Luna's room.
My boy's
Luna
tall.
was one of the quieter kids,
Okay.
always keeping to herself. When
Yeah.
I peeked through the crack in her door, I saw Carl standing over her.
I told you the car is a PDF, bro. Real talk, bro. Car like kids. I told you I was looking for your first story. I told you car like kids. Boy, I'm telling you, when somebody's looking at you that long, you feel the energy. Like, bro, why you looking at me like that, bro? Like, what's good? Do we have a problem? That's how you need to approach. Even when you're a kid, or you jet, or if you're a teenager, if you see somebody looking at you, you're like, bro, what's good? You know what I'm saying? Because you, there's some weird ass energy. Like, look at Carl right now. Why is she on her knees? Why is Carl up all the way? Why is reaching? You know what? Like, come on, bro.
Doing something. Luna was shaking, tears streaming down
That's
her face.
crazy, bro.
Please.
Oh my, that's crazy.
Do that again.
Not
I don't want to do this.
what
If you don't do what I
again? Oh, this
say,
shit
you'll
is
never
wicked.
get the magic candies again.
What the
Carl
fuck?
hissed. Luna's sobs grew louder, but she nodded, clearly terrified. I
What?
felt a chill run down my spine. Something was seriously wrong. The next
Hey, the candies don't worth that much. I don't know what candies are those, but shit. What? That's crazy doing that for the candy. That's crazy.
day, I started keeping an eye on Carl, trying to figure out what he was up to. It didn't take long to piece things together. I
Oh,
noticed how
man.
the kids seemed to almost worship the candy, how they'd do almost anything for it, even things that made no sense, like cleaning Carl's shoes or giving him back rubs.
Oh, heck no, bitch. Give me that, man. All that. Oh, heck no. You got me fucked up.
I followed Carl to the pantry where he kept the candy. I waited until he left and then snuck in. That's when I found it. A stash of pills hidden
I
behind
told
the
you that
jars of
I was I was telling you there's something in the candies.
Sweets. Carl was drugging us through the candies, getting
That's
us hooked.
crazy.
And when the addiction got bad enough, he used it to control us, to make us do disgusting things for him.
Told
The
you, bro.
realization hit me like a punch to the gut. Carl was a pedo, and Mrs. Damsel
Told
knew
you.
it.
Told
She
you.
was too scared to do anything about it.
I told
so
you.
she let it continue. I was furious, terrified, and most
Told
of
you.
all, determined to stop him. That night, I gathered the other kids. They were confused at
This is the last pause. I told you what it was, bro. Come on, bro. That's the last pause for referral. Because this video is 5 minutes. I'm not trying to search this.
first. Their eyes glazed over from the candy, but I showed them the pills and told them what Carl had been doing. Slowly,
Yeah.
the realization dawned on them too. The fear turned to anger. When Carl came into the room, he
Y'all
didn't
gotta
see
jump
it
him.
coming. We all jumped on him, hitting, kicking, and doing anything to make him stop. He screamed, but we didn't stop.
Put that
until
more than
Mrs.
a full
Damsel
Nelson.
rushed in, horrified by the scene. For the first time, she did the right thing. She called the cops. Carl was arrested that night. The mansion shut down soon after. We were all sent to a hospital for 6 months to get clean and to try to forget the horrors we'd lived through. It
Heck
wasn't
no.
easy. Some of the kids took longer than others, but we all made it through.
Ain't no
Now,
forgetting
I'm
that.
grown. I've moved on, or at least tried to. But every year on my birthday, I get cards and gifts from the kids who were at the mansion with me. From my
Yeah.
friends, because that's what they became.
For sure,
Friends
bro.
whose lives I saved, and who, in a way, saved mine too.
That's
Life goes on, but those memories never really leave you. Every time I see a piece of candy, I remember what happened in that old mansion up in the hills. And every time I get one of those cards in the mail, I know that we all made it out. We survived, and that's what matters.
I'm not lying, bro. I told you. Like, bro. You know what I'm saying? I told you what it was, dog. You know what I'm saying? You said I was right. I told you what it was. The first story was quite decent. I like those. You know what I'm saying? That was not bad at all. Let's see what the second one is talking
When I
about.
first arrived at the Johnsons' house, I thought I'd finally found a real family. The
Oh.
house was perfect, like something out of a
Ooh,
magazine. White picket
damn.
fence, flowers lining the walkway, and a porch swing. Mrs. Johnson was always smiling, and Mr. Johnson was the kind of man who patted your head when you did well in school. I had heard that they had helped 4 kids before me, including Jules, with whom I had briefly shared a home with earlier. I was finally safe. We'd have family dinners every night with Mr. Johnson carving the roast while Mrs. Johnson asked me about school. They even gave me my own room. It was more
Damn.
than I'd ever had before. But then, the strange woman started coming.
Oh, heck
It was
no.
always the same. The doorbell would ring and Mrs. Johnson's smile would tighten just a little. They never let me see her, not at first. They'd shut the door behind them and all I'd hear was their muffled voices. The first time I saw her was by accident. I'd forgotten my math book downstairs and had snuck out of bed to get it. I peeked around the corner just in time to see her being led to a small broom cupboard under the stairs. She was
What?
Chinese, maybe in her late 30s, with long black hair. But weirdly, the Johnsons locked the cupboard from outside.
Why is that woman locked up in the room?
Mrs. Johnson's smile was back in place by the time
Uh.
she answered.
She's just a friend who needs some cleaning supplies. Don't worry, honey. Go back to your room.
That was not what you're supposed
I
to
didn't
see.
believe her. Something about the way she said it made my skin crawl. The visits became more frequent. Every few days, the woman would show up, and each time, the Johnsons would lock her away in the cupboard for a few hours. It wasn't just that, though. I started noticing other things, little things that didn't add up. Mr.
Ooh.
Johnson would disappear late at night, only to return with dirt on his shoes and clothes. Mrs. Johnson would get phone calls, and after hanging up, she'd look worried. One night,
Damn.
I overheard them arguing in the kitchen. She's getting suspicious. We can't keep this up much longer.
She's just a child.
Yeah.
She doesn't understand. It's too late to back out now.
Whoa.
We need to see it through.
I didn't know what they were talking about, but I knew it wasn't good. Then, one night, I found the pictures. I went to Mr. Johnson's home office to get a stapler for my school project when I knocked over a stack of papers on his desk. As I picked them up, a few photos slid out from underneath.
Oh
They were of
my
children, boys and
gosh.
girls around my age or younger. Some of them
What?
were tied up. My hands shook as I shoved the photos back into the pile, but not before I saw the last one. It was of a Chinese woman sitting in the same broom cupboard that they always locked her in. Only this time, she wasn't alone. There was a little girl with her, and I recognized her instantly.
What?
Jules. I knew then that something was terribly off. The next day, Mrs. Johnson told me to go clean the broom cupboard. I didn't think anything of it until I stepped inside and the door slammed shut behind me.
That's
I heard
fucked
the lock
up.
click, and I was
Oh
plunged into
my.
darkness.
Let me out! Please!
Oh my
no one
gosh.
I don't know how long I was in there, but it must have been 2 to 3 days. I screamed until
Damn.
my throat was raw, but they didn't care. They would just give me food and water.
I'm gonna tell you the strategy. Yo, open the door before I pee all over this shit, bro. Real talk, open the door. I'm gonna pee though. Yeah. Like that's strategy you need to use, but something happened to you like this. Hey bro, if you don't open this door, I'm gonna pee. Yeah, I'm gonna take it out, bro. Real talk. If I'm this shit gonna stink, don't it? You know what I'm saying? That's a strategy y'all need to use. Like, if I'm saying you got me locked up over here, okay, if you don't let me out, I'm pee all over the place. You know what I'm saying? Simple. And they're gonna say, oh nah bro, that shit gonna stink, don't do that. Say, bitch, let me out then. They're gonna let you out. You know what I'm saying? You see, it's IQ, it's a strategy.
Once in a day and kept a bucket beside me for me to relieve. And then,
Oh hey, don't you see, they say the bucket is inside you to relieve, but say I'm not relieving that bitch, I'm relieving outside this bitch, you know what I'm saying? I ain't doing it in that bucket, I'm doing it right on the floor, right on the door. Just like those right there. And they're gonna let you out, you know what I'm saying? Because they don't wanna smell what you know what I'm saying? Yeah.
and one night, the door opened. To my horror, it was the same mysterious Chinese woman. She didn't say a word, pulled out a marker, and wrote something in Chinese on my arms and neck before leaving. I had to think fast. There was nothing in the cupboard except for brooms, a mop, and a small toolbox. The toolbox. It took few hours to pry the nails out of the wooden panels, but it
Okay.
loosened the lock on the door, which finally gave way. I crawled out, covered in sweat and dirt, and then ran for the neighbor's house. When they opened their door, I burst into tears and told them everything. The police came soon after, and over the next month, a massive crackdown happened as the arrest of the Johnsons revealed a big human trafficking ring. They found the pictures, imprisoned the Chinese woman and her friends, and this scandal suddenly shook our small town. The Johnsons were arrested, but I still see their faces in my nightmares. I considered them close to my parents, not realizing that I was being groomed by them to be sold off. It's often the
Damn.
people with the warmest of smiles who have the darkest of hearts.
That their story, but I'm telling you, bro. She could have got it that way, but like, bro, what you gonna do if I'm like, if I'm saying? That strategy I told y'all, that's a good strategy too. If I'm saying let me out, or I'm gonna pay over the place. Simple. You know what I'm saying? So that the third story, bro, this sounds good. True horror stories. Not gonna lie, these are true horror stories. I like these. These are tough.
When Jake and I were sent to live with Mrs. Hawthorne, we were told it was a fresh start, a chance to be part of a family again. To have a home in the countryside where the air was clean and the nights were quiet. I wanted to believe that, but the moment we arrived, something felt wrong. Mrs. Hawthorne's house was old, leaning under the weight of decades, surrounded by thick woods. The air inside was stale and marred with creaking floorboards. Mrs. Hawthorne greeted us with a strange smile. She was supposed to be old, with silver hair pinned into a tight bun and wrinkly arms, but her face looked young and radiant, as if she were 30. There
Ain't
were
no
three
way.
other children there, which was odd since we were not told about them. They were quiet, their eyes downcast, moving like they were half asleep.
Jake,
Don't say what I
you
think.
they're okay?
Heck
Just
no.
shy, Mia. We'll be fine.
Hey, it's my first time seeing the animation. Y'all said the mouth animation, you can run on the back. That's the first time. That's dope. That's the
At
first time I've
least I
seen that.
wasn't so sure. The house itself seemed alive, with doors that creaked open on their own and shadows that slithered
Oh,
across the
wee.
walls. At night, I'd hear strange noises coming from the attic, scratching, like something was trying to claw its way out. The other children never talked about it, never even seemed to notice. But when I pressed one of the boys, Oliver, about it, he just told me to not talk about it, or the caregiver would know.
I'm sure she can't hear us.
That is when Oliver's face paled and he turned away, saying
Yeah.
that the caregiver was not Mrs. Hawthorne. It was the first time I heard about the caretaker, but it wouldn't be the last. The other kids whispered about it when they thought no one was listening, but I caught fragments of their conversations. They believed the caretaker lived in the attic, that it
What?
controlled Mrs. Hawthorne, that it was the reason for all the strange things that happened there. Every night, Mrs. Hawthorne performed strange rituals. She'd light candles, dozens of them,
Fuck
and
no.
arrange them in a circle in the living room. She'd chant in a language I didn't understand, her voice
Yeah.
rising and falling like the wind through the trees. The first time I saw it, I was frozen. Her rituals grew more bizarre. Her voice was more frantic. I rushed back, scared, but I noticed that the
Ooh-wee.
other children were suddenly getting weaker. They were pale, their eyes sunken.
Ain't no way what I think is happening. That's what I think is happening. Is this woman taking their, you know what? Oh no, you gotta get out of there, boy. What? You don't know what I'm talking about. Oh my gosh.
And they moved even slower than before.
I
It
don't
was
want to
as if
say it, but
the life was being drained out of them.
what?
One day, I found an old photograph. It was of Mrs. Hawthorne standing in front of the house, but something was off. The photo was dated 1952, but Mrs.
Wow.
Hawthorne looked exactly the same. No wrinkles, no signs of aging, her skin still exactly the same. My heart raced as I realized that something strange was afoot.
You
I
gotta
looped
get out
in
there.
Jake, and that night we planned to see the attic. The candles were already lit, and Mrs. Hawthorne was in the middle of one of her rituals. Her chanting was louder, more frantic, and the house seemed to pulse with a dark energy. The shadows on the walls twisted and
Damn.
writhed, almost if they were alive. We waited until Mrs. Hawthorne was deep in her ritual, and then we snuck up. The attic door was locked, but we could hear something moving behind it. Jake was a god at breaking locks, and I gave him my
Ooh.
hairpins.
Okay.
Jake, hurry! We need to do this before she notices.
Oh,
Right,
that's
say when.
compy. That comes. That's compy right there, bro. Okay, Jake. I was not wanting to know how to.
Trying me, I just keep watch. And then it came undone. We went inside, amidst the darkness and the strange smell. Jake had brought a match, and as soon as he hit it, we saw a figure in the sparks. It wasn't
Whoa.
human or an animal. It was easily
Damn.
over 10 feet tall and had red eyes. Before we could even get out of the jolt, I realized that the smell was of gasoline, and before I could stop Jake, he threw the almost burnt-out stick on the floor to pull out a new one. That was it. A
Fuck.
terrifying blaze swept through the attic, and in the middle, we saw the demonic figure wail. We turned to run, but Mrs. Hawthorne was already there, her eyes
Ooh-wee,
pitch
boy.
black, and her mouth twisted into a snarl.
You think you can escape? You're mine!
Oh, heck
Jake
no.
pushed me towards the stairs while he charged at her.
Dang,
"Drop
Jake
me,
is a.
I'll hold her off. I
Oh,
resisted,
Jake is a
but
W
Jake
mans,
pushed me down
bro.
the stairs. I looked back just in time to see the black entity and Mrs. Hawthorne merge into one. Suddenly, huge claws grew out of her fingers as the fire surrounded her. The fire
Bitch, what?
roared, consuming the attic, but it was too late. I ran to the other kids for help, but as I approached them, I stood in shock. They all had entirely pitch black eyes as well. And then it made sense why
Damn.
no one had told us about those kids earlier. They were all dead as well. As the fire took over the house and I heard Jake's screams, I cried and ran out for help. I
What?
didn't
I
stop
got
until I reached the nearest
chills.
house. The neighbors called the cops, but
I
by the
got.
time they got there, the house was nothing but ashes. They found the bodies of the other children buried in the ground behind the house, their eyes missing. but they never found Jake or Mrs. Hawthorne. It was as
Damn.
if they'd vanished into thin air.
I got chills,
Everyone was
bitch.
afraid of believing in me till the bodies were found, but they had no explanations.
I'm
I
chilling.
still remember it clearly, even after a decade, about what I saw that night. I just pray that Jake found his peace.
Ain't enough piece of that, bro. Hey, Jake is cooked. Not like that was. This is some W ass shit, bro. Like, I'm not gonna lie. These last two story time, true animated story time videos that I reacted to, these some W ass shit. These sounds some bangers right here, boy. No cap. But I meant that right here. Not gonna lie, bro. That is so scary. I got the last one gave me chills all over my body, bro. I felt chills all over my body. Real talk. I know y'all did too. Damn, boy. Oh heck no. I'm in there right here, y'all. I'm gonna see you boys on the next one. Go ahead, subscribe if you don't miss my content, vids, posts, all lives, and yeah, bro. Smash the like button if you want more Spooky Scary Friday, and your boys are there. I here. I'm gonna see you boys in the next one. Peace.